of Sefer Shoftim, and today we're up to Perek Zayin. If you remember, after the reign of Devorah, we began with a new Shofet, Gidon, who was from the tribe of Menashe, and in order for Gidon to be able to successfully fight the Midianites, it was necessary for him and his family to be purified of the taint of Avodah Zarah, and as a result, HaKadosh Baruch Hu ordered Gidon to destroy the altar that his town had erected to the idol Baal, the Canaanite idol Baal. And when the city heard that what he had done, they wanted to punish him. But his father, who himself was an idol worshiper, his father defended Gidon by basically saying, if Baal is a god, Baal will fight against my son. You don't have to do so. And as a result, Gidon acquired a new nickname, Yerubal, which means the Baal shall fight. But what's interesting is that in Lashon HaKodesh, Yerubal can have two meanings. The town intended by that name, the Baal shall fight against him, but Yerubal can also mean he, Gidon, will fight against the Baal. So they had one kavanah, and it could very well be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had a different kavanah. But because of this, Gidon now has two names. His birth name was Gidon, and his nickname was Yerubal. And sometimes the pasuk goes back and forth. It refers to him as Gidon, sometimes Yerubal, and indeed that would be a matter for more advanced limud as to why is one name used over the other. So at this point, Yerubal had passed the test of Emunah in Hashem, and now he is ready to wage war against the Midianites that have been harassing Am Yisrael for a number of years. So Perek Zayin, Pasuk Aleph begins, Vayashtem Yerubal, hu Gidon, v'chol am asher ito, that Yerubal, who is Gidon, and all of the people that he is assembling, they got up, Vayachanu al ein Charod, they assembled adjacent to the spring of Charod, that's a spring and a location, Umachane Midyan Hayolo Mitzafon, and north of them was the Midianite camp, Migivat HaMoreh Ba'emek, starting from a town called Givat HaMoreh, which was located in the valley. Vayayimer Hashem el Gidon. Gidon had assembled thousands and thousands of people. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want the victory against Midian to be with thousands of people, because then the Jewish people would attribute their victory to their large numbers. HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'dafka wants very small numbers. Vayomer Hashem el Gidon, Rav ha'am asher itach mititi es Midian bi'adam. The people that you have assembled are too large for me to deliver Midian into their hands. Pen yitzpa'er ala Yisrael lemor yodi hoshia li, lest the Jewish people arrogantly glorify themselves above me, above Hashem, and say, Yodi, it is my hand, hoshia li, that has given me salvation. Mashen Kain, of course, if it's a very small group of people, so b'derech hateva, they would have no way to be victorious. They would see the Yad Hashem, and therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Gidon, V'yata Karana b'yazneyam lemar, make the following announcements. First of all, mi yarei v'chored yashov v'yitzpor mehara Gilad. Make an announcement that anyone that is scared of fighting, anyone that is fearful, he should go, and he should return home. He should fly away. Yitzpor mehar Gilad, from Mount Gilad. This is Ever Yarden. That's where Gidon is from. Vayoshev mina'am esr mushnayim elef, and Memela 22,000 people took advantage of this exemption. Now you'll recall, in the Torah itself, there is an exemption for a person that is yorei v'racha levav. And the Torah makes an interesting point. It's not simply we let this person go, but the idea is that fear is often contagious, and it can totally destroy combat morale. So the people that were yorei, 22,000 people left, v'yaseres alafim nisharu. So Gidon had an army of 32,000 people, 22,000 people left. There are 10,000 people who are heroic enough to be willing to go to combat. but that's too big. Vayomer Hashem el Gidon, O ta'am rav, too many people. Horad osam el hamayim, take them to the water, take them to the stream. Vatsarfenu l'chasham, and I will refine for you there, meaning I will give you a test, so you'll know, just like when you refine metal, you burn away the impurities, and you have the pure silver or the pure gold. I will make a smelter, so to speak, which will separate those who are pure and those who are not pure. What is the test? V'haya asher omar elecha ze yelech itach. He who I will say should go with you, hu yelech itach, he shall go with you. V'chol asher omar elecha ze lo yelech imach. And anyone that I say should not go with you, lo yelech. Now, of course, this doesn't say what the test is. That's going to be explained as we go on. So, Pasuk Hey, Vayored esa'am el hamayim, Gideon brought the people, the 10,000 people, the 10,000 people down to the water. Vayomer Hashem el Gideon. Now, this is the test. How will they drink from the water? Kol asher yilok bilshono min hamayim kasher yaluk hakelev tatzik oso levad v'chol asher yichra al birkav lishtos. So the test is, tell your 10,000 people to drink from the water. Apparently they weren't concerned with germs or all the pollutants that we're worried about today. And anyone that gets on their knees and laps up the water with their tongue, like a dog laps up water, that is the person you should not take. And Chazal explain that the people who automatically get on their knees because they're ragil to go on their berkayim, they probably were habituated to Avodah Zarah, because that is the way Avodah Zarah was worshipped. People got on their knees and they bowed. So if they naturally get into that position and then lap up the water with their tongue, they are disqualified because they are Ovdei Avodah Zarah. But if they gather the water in their hands and bring it up to their faces and they stand upright, that would mean, number one, they're courageous. They don't bow down, so to speak, to the enemy. And number two, they are not Ovdei Avodah Zarah. They are the ones that you should choose. So the pasuk says, "Vayihi mispar hamalakikim biyadam el pihem." The number of people who gathered the water in their hands and brought it to their mouths out of 10,000 people was only shalosh meot ish. 300 people out of the 10,000 drank the water in the way that showed they were not over the Avodah Zarah. V'chol yeser ha'am karu al birkeihem lishtos mayim. And everybody else, right, 9,700, bowed down on their knees to drink the water. So Vayomer Hashem el Gideon. So Hashem says to Gideon, Bishloish meyai so'ish hamalakikim oshia eschem. So Gideon started off with an army of 32,000 people. And Hashem says, I will save you from the powerful armies of Midian with only the 300 people who gathered the water in their hands and brought it to their faces. V'nasati es Midian biyadecha, I will deliver Midian into your hands. V'chol ha'am, and everybody else, yelchu ish l'makomo, let them go home. They are not the vehicle by which I will bring a victory to Am Yisrael. And the pasuk says, "Vayikchu es seida ha'am biyadam," that all of the provisions that the other soldiers who are going home had brought for the army, their food and the like, were given to the 300, so they would have all of these extra supplies. V'yes shofrosehem, as well as the shofars. We're going to see that all of them had shofars and they're going to be used. V'yes kol ish Yisrael shilach ish li'o alav. Everybody else was sent to their tent. U'b'shalosh meyo so ish hichzik. And Gidon held on to only 300 soldiers. And again, Machane Midyan Hayala Mitachas Ba'imek. The Jews are kind of on a mountain or a hill, and the camp of the Midianites are below them in a valley. So Gidon now has his very small army. Vayihi balaylahu, it was that night, Vayomer Elof Hashem. Hashem says to Gidon, Kum raid b'machane. Go down to the camp of the Midianites. Fight them. Ki nesativ biyadach, I have delivered them in your hands. In other words, he's telling Gidon, this is not yet, he's not saying that the Jewish army should attack, but he should go down as a spy because he will hear certain messages that will give him chizuk. And Hashem wants him to hear what the Midianites are talking about. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu then says, Im yarei ata l'redes, if you are afraid to go alone, reid ata upura narcha elamachana. You should go down together with Pura. Pura can be your advance party, can be your spy, can alert you if there's any danger. So you and Pura should go down. Vishamata ma yedaberu. And you should hear what the Midianites are talking. Hide and overhear their conversations. V'achar techazakna yadacha, and then your hands will be strong. You will be full of courage. V'yaradata b'machana, and you will be able to take your whole army down to the machana, to the camp of Midian. So the pasuk says that Gidon did what Hashem said. Vayered hu Pura na'aro el ketzeach hamushim sheb'machana. He and Pura descended from their hill into the Midianite camp surreptitiously. And that camp was huge. Midian, together with Amalek, V'chol b'nei Kedem, and the people from the east, these are the other B'nai Keturah. Remember, Midian is one of the B'nai Keturah of Abraham, and the other B'nai Kedem, as well as Amalek, is joining Midian. Noflim be'emek, they are in the valley, Ka'arbel l'rov, as many as the locusts, swarms of locusts. You had swarms of people. V'lig maleihem ein mispar. And their camels, which were used as battle animals. Well, there was no number to their camels. Kechayel ashel sfasayam l'rov, like the sands at the shores of the sea, l'rov. So 300 people versus this huge army. Vayavai Gidon, and Gidon sneaks into the Midianite camp. V'hine ish misaper l'ri'eyu chalaim. One Midianite is telling another Midianite about a dream that he had. That was troubling him, really a nightmare. Vayomer, and one Midianite said to the other, Hine chalaim chalamti, behold, I had a dream. V'hine salil lechem sa'orim misapech b'machane Midian. I dreamed of a barley cake. Imagine a loaf of barley bread that was turning over and over and over, a gigantic loaf of barley bread. And it was mispahech, and it was turning over and over and over until it knocked over all the tents of the Midianites. Vayavo ad ha'ayel v'yakeu, it came to the tent of the Midianites, all the tents, and it smote the tents, vayipel, and the tents were knocked over. Vayavcheu l'mala, and it was turned upside down, v'nafal ha'ayel. So it's a very scary dream. This gigantic cake, this gigantic loaf of bread, was turning over our tents. Vayan re'eu vayomer. And the friend said to him, ay, a bad sign. Ein zos biltiyim cherev Gidon ben Yayesh ish Yisrael. This is a sign that Gidon, the son of Yayesh from the Jews, nasan elikim biyadayis Midian. In other words, the Midianites are now terror-stricken from this dream, that Hashem has delivered the Midianites into Gidon's hands, as Midian ves kol ha'machane. Now, Chazal say a very interesting thing. Okay, I understand the fact that the Midianite tents are being turned over indicates a Jewish victory, but what is the significance of the barley cake the loaf of barley, the tzelil sa'orim. And Chazal say that this actually was occurring the first night of Pesach. And this is a remez that the next day, meaning the second day of Pesach, they will be bringing the Korban HaOmer, which is barley. And in the merit of the Korban HaOmer, there is going to be a nitzachon. So apparently the Midianites were aware that the Jewish people had a special Korban of barley, and they saw in this Chalaim that the Zechus of the Hakravas HaOmer, even though the Chayra is a little shver, because the Nes occurred the day before, but nevertheless, it's Al Shema Asid, since the Ebershter knows they're going to bring the Omer, so that becomes a Zechus even before the Hakravas HaOmer. If you remember in the Seder Shel Pesach, when we talk about Vayhi B'chatzi Alayla, V'yamartim Zevach Pesach, and we list the different miracles that occurred at night, and the miracles that occurred on Pesach, it mentions this barley cake as a sign of divine mercy. Vayehi kishmaya gidayin es mispar chalaim v'yes shivrei. And when Gideon heard the narration of the dream and the interpretation of the dream, vayishtachu, he bowed down to thank Hashem for the Yeshua even before it happened. Vayashav el machane Yisrael, and he returned to the camp of the Jews. Vayomer, and he said, Kumu, let us get up, ki nasan Hashem biyedchem es machane Midjan. Hashem has delivered into your hands the gigantic camp of Midjan, which is really absolutely a miracle, because Gideon only has 300 soldiers, and the Midianites and the Amalek and the Bnei Kedem are ka'arbe, they are like locusts, hordes of locusts, swarms of locusts, al pnei asad. So now, even though Gideon has a divine promise, he is mechuyev to make hishtadlus and try to create something militarily that might be able to work. So what he did was, vayachatz es shalosh meos ish, shalosha rashim. He took his 300 people, and he divided them into 3 groups. Each group is only 100 soldiers. Vayitein shofarot biyad kulam. Every soldier in all 3 groups got a shofar, a ram's horn that they would blow. We'll see why that's important. V'chadim reikim, and they got jugs, empty jugs, just a jug, a water jug that doesn't have any water in it. V'lapidim b'toch hakadim. And in the empty jugs were placed a torch. So each kad is machzik, a lapid, a burning torch. So every soldier had a shofar and a kad that was empty and that contained a lapid. Vayomer aleim. And then Gideon gave instructions to his 3 groups. Mimeni tiru v'chein tasu. You should see what I'm going to do, and you should imitate what I'm going to do. V'hinei anochi ba b'ktzei ha'machaneh. I will approach the edge of the Midianite camp, and again, v'haya kasher asen, whatever I do, kein tasun, you shall do. So the first thing is, v'sakati b'shofar anochi. I am going to blow the shofar in a very loud way. V'chol asher iti, and all of my group, because Gideon himself was the head of one of the groups of 100. My group will blow the shofar as well, so there'll be 100 shofars blowing, and when you hear the 100 shofars blowing, then you other 2 groups should blow the shofar as well. Uskatem b'shofrot gamatem sevivot kol ha'machaneh v'yamartem, and you should shout out after you blow the shofar, Lashem. We are fighting for the glory of Hashem, Ula Gideon, and for the Hatzlach of Gideon. Now again, let me explain the general idea here. Generally speaking, when armies went into battle, there would be someone blowing a shofar in order to get the troops inspired and get into the battle. But here's the thing. You only had a few shofar blowers. So if, indeed, there is the very loud sound of 300 shofar blowers, which normally was not done by every soldier, it was only done by a small group, the enemy is going to think, if we hear hundreds of shofar blowings, there must be thousands and thousands of troops. So this is a way to psych out the enemy, so they would think there are many, many, many more chayolim than actually is the case, and the enemy is going to panic. So that's kind of the logic of this particular step. Vayavai Gidon u'mei Sheritai, so Gidon with his 100 men came to the Ksei HaMachaneh, came to the edge of the camp. Rosh Ha'ashmores Hatichona. Again, the concept of Ashmores means we divide the night into 3 thirds, 3 groupings, and this is the beginning of the second group. Once each one is 4 hours, so the beginning of the middle Ashmera, Gidon comes to the camp. Ach hekimu es hashomrim, and obviously the guardians, the watchmen of the Midianite camp, was alerted that there are going to be invaders. But then, Vayiskeu b'shofarot, Gidon and his 100 men blew the shofros, and not only that, but nafotz hakadim, they smashed their jugs and revealed these torches. So once again, the Midianites see hundreds. It's only 300, but once again, it's a night. They hear hundreds of shofros. They hear the smashing of hundreds of kadim, and they see hundreds of torches materializing out of nowhere. And once again, they figure, if I see hundreds of torches, there must be thousands of people. And then when Gidon did that, the other 2 groups did it as well. V'yisku shloshes haroshim b'shofaris, v'yishbru akadim, v'yachziku b'yad smolam b'lapidem. So in their left hand, right after they broke the kad, in their left hand they were holding the lapid. In their right hand they were blowing the shofar. Of course, they'll put down the shofar to take a sword, but at this point, v'yikru cherev l'Hashem v'lagidon, and they proclaimed, "Let us take our swords for the glory of Hashem and for the hatzlacha of Gidon." Vayamdu ish tachtov savu l'machana, and they surrounded the machana. Vayaretz kol l'machana, and then all of the Midianites ran away out of fear. V'yariu, and they blew their own shofars. V'yanuso, and they ran away. Vayisku shalosh meos shofars. In the meantime, the shofars were being blown. And what happened was what often happens in war, and that is, as the enemy got confused in the night, and they didn't know where they were going, they didn't know who they were facing, and they thought that the Jewish army was much larger than it was, then they were simply lashing out, and they were killing their own soldiers. This is called friendly fire. This was not fire, we can call it friendly sword, so to speak, in which the army is killing its own men in the confusions. Vayosem Hashem eischerev ishbre'eyu, that a Midianite killed another Midianite. B'chol ha'machana. Vayonos ha'machana ad beis hashita tzurei rasa. And the Midianites that survived, they were running away in retreat, all the way to a town that was based Shita in the direction of Tsuraras, ad svas avel mechola al tabat, until the shore of a stream that was called Avel Mechola near Tabat. So it just gives us geographically where they ran. Vayitzaek ish Yisrael min Naftali umin Asher umin kol min Asher. So at this point, the retreat of the Midianites and their panic and their fear and their friendly fire, that was caused by only 300 soldiers. But now, to truly defeat the army, at this point, Gidon needs to invite other people to participate. So we got people from Naphtali, from Asher, from the rest of Menashe, Vayirdefu acharei Midyan, and they joined the pursuit against Midyan to destroy that army. Because if all you have is a retreat, that doesn't really help you, because the next day they could come back again. Umalachim shalach Gidon b'chol har Ephraim, and Gidon sent shaluchim in all of the mountain of Ephraim, Lamor, declaring the area of Ephraim. Har Ephraim means the mountainous areas. It doesn't just mean a single mountain. Redu likrat Midyan, just as I called Naphtali, Asher, and Menashe, I'm calling you to fight against Midyan. Lichtu lahem esamayim ad beis bar. So again, the issue is that Midyan is located east of the Yarden, but south of the land of Reuven, Gad, and Chatzi Shevet Menashe. So as the Midianites are retreating, they're going to cross the Yarden to go back to Midian. So Gideon's instructions to the Bnei Ephraim is control all passages over the Yarden, all bridges or whatever, so that the Bnei Ephraim, so that the Midianites will not be able to cross. Lichdu lahem es hamayim ad beis bara. Control all of the bridges or all of the passage points of the water until beis bara. V'es hayarden, vayitzaei kol ish Ephraim, and the people of Ephraim were assembled. Vayilkedu es hamayim ad beis bara v'es yarden, and they controlled all of the crossings, so no Midianites would be able to escape. And the pasuk says, "Vayilkedu shnei sari Midian." Two of the generals of Midian were captured, and they have actually interesting names: Orev, which means a crow, and Ze'ev, that means wolf. But that was the name of these generals: Orev and Ze'ev. Vayahargu es Orev b'tzur Orev, and Orev was killed in a place that was known as Sur Orev. I'm assuming it was called Sur Orev in commemoration of Orev being killed. V'es Ze'ev hargu bayekev Ze'ev, and Ze'ev, the general Ze'ev, was killed in the wine press of Ze'ev. Again, it was a wine press that was called Yekev Ze'ev to commemorate. This is where Ze'ev was killed. So now they lost their generals. Vayirdefu al Midian, and they continued to pursue Midian. For Rosh Orev uZe'ev heviu el Gidon me'ever liyarden, and the Bnei Ephraim brought the heads, the severed head of Orev and Ze'ev to Gidon from across the Yarden. So this actually means that Gidon himself crossed the Yarden to attack Midianites who were still on the east side of the Yarden. Orev and Ze'ev were killed on the west side because they were not able to cross, and therefore they brought Gidon, the heads of Orev and Ze'ev, to the east part of the Yarden, where Gidon had already crossed.